1106, which will be presented to council at committee on April 7th.
Is there anybody from the audience that has questions to this?
There's no one signed in.
All right, seeing none, the public hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.
Got Board of Control.
All right, Mike, I'm looking at the packet and I'm seeing the minutes from February, what's that?
17th.
17th. And then we've got, all right, so we'll do that first.
I'm froze.
I will move the minutes.
Okay, I'll second it while Garrett's getting busy signing on. So yeah, he's here. So you're muted, Garrett, but all in favor of the minutes, say aye or raise your hand or whatever.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks. And then Mike or Garrett, we've got one item for tonight. It's a Thompson Electric, it looks like.
I'd move authorization.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item? Okay, all right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, opposed, motion carries. That's it for us. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you got a couple minutes. Hey, let me tell you, I was on a Zoom meeting last night and our Wi-Fi dropped me out and they just dropped me out here to get a few minutes, but I brought it back out. So Jack, if I disappear, it's all yours.
Okay.
I got a new computer. How do I sound?
Great.
And you look great.
Do I sound like sober and articulate?
Is it supposed to be in French though?
Oh, and that was so much more fun, Glenn, back when you had the
Hey Gwen, I had a follow-up telephone call with two people who were at last Thursday night's roundtable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that I was impressed with the fact that there seems to be some tempering of the emotional side of it and trying to look at practical things. And you and I will have to sit down and talk about what we might be able to do to help.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I thought it was really really well put together. It was very informative. I'm glad I attended.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Probably the rest of us should have gone too, huh?
Yeah, we can report out to, what the types of things that they're talking about. And it was
Roger, was this for the intergenerational meeting?
I don't know. It was
Okay.
the Interfaith Council, the Interfaith Council. And Gwen and I were there, and we were pleased to represent Council on the Zoom call. But I was taken aback about the practicality. And by the way, I see Nick's on line. And Chief, you were held in high esteem by one of our former students from Roosevelt. He mentioned that he had multiple conversations with you, and
Really?
was very impressed. Yes.
Glad to hear.
Yeah. So it was.
I am here at 7 o'clock and we do have an agenda.
Okay.
So we're in the committee reports for March 3rd. Community Development, Mr. Kuhar, you're first up.
Oh, we're gonna call a roll? No? Okay.
Not for committee nights, John. I know the new people online don't get it, but we will.
I'm new. This is for proposed 2020-21 2021 Cdbg action plan, and Bridget's going to straighten it all out.
Yes, thank you. So as we do each year, this memo that Kathy Petsko prepared and forwarded to you lists the proposed CDBG projects that we plan to hopefully fund with our program year 2021 CDBG allocation. As in prior years, we have not received notification of what that allocation will be. So we base our funding decisions on last year's, and last year's was 303,720. So we are funding 6 projects. And the first one in your memo, I did note Kathy does have some date errors, but the first phase is going to be completed this year on Walnut. It's a road reconstruction, including sidewalk, curb, and stormwater gutter. So phase 1 will be complete this year, and we are proposing to commit $160,000 for phase 2, which will be up, basically we're moving block by block. We'll cover Harris and Dodge. The next project is the City of Kent Neighborhood Policing Program. We provide funds under our public service activity that allows for additional funding in areas of the city that have a higher concentration of low to moderate income neighborhoods and assisted living housing complexes. So we will be committing $18,000 to police if our anticipated allocation comes in where we hope. As every year, we are funding the Community Action Council of Portage County, $35,000. They provide an emergency furnace and hot water tank replacement program. This is one of our most successful programs. We basically get calls, and for those who can't afford to do it, through an application process and a preferred contractors list, we provide that as a free grant service. We are proposing $15,000 for Miller House. We do this every year. That covers basically shelter nights. It's an emergency shelter. When originally I first started here, it was limited to 30 days. Many of the residents, however, stay there longer before they can actually find placement. We are also looking at $45,000 for Family and Community Services for the replacement of 14 furnaces and cooling units at houses that provide domestic violence assistance called Safe Path, and also a transitional housing facility for individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So they move out of Miller into this transitional housing until we can get them a housing voucher and move them into permanent housing. We are also looking at giving $5,000 to the Ohio Small Business Development Center. And you may remember we have funded this for more in prior years, but this funding is limited to low to moderate income small business owners or participants here within the city of Kent. And we find it's been challenging to find people at that point that are actually doing small businesses, but we do still fund the program, and we also provide in-kind services. So even if you don't qualify income-wise, you can provide, those services are provided by community development and the city through Susan McGann, who provides the assistance and the business planning out of our office. She also works out of the Akron office. And finally, $6,500 of the proposed allocation would be used for administrative costs. This typically doesn't go much towards salary, but is used for publications and notifications. And then as required by fair housing law, we will be providing $19,000 to fair housing contact services to provide our fair housing requirement services here in the city. As in prior years, we are not asking for a motion on these projects tonight. We still need to go through yet another public hearing and a 30-day review process. So these would be coming before you for legislative approval in May of 2021.
Okay, got any questions? Roger?
Bridget, maybe people would be interested in this. I know I am. How does the federal government define low and moderate income? Is there a threshold, financial threshold?
Yes, there is. So low to moderate income includes anyone from basically zero to up to 80% of the area median income. So each year HUD provides us a breakout of what the area median household income is, and then those caps. We usually group them into three. Extremely low mod is at 30% and below the area median income. 50% is considered low income, and 80% is considered moderate. It typically doesn't shift too much year to year, but one thing that is a little frustrating for those of us that work with the program is we are included in the Akron metropolitan statistical area. We're not big enough to have our own. So neither is Portage. So we're kind of a little skewed in there. I will say in recent years, it hasn't been so problematic, but back in 09 and 2010, it was a bit of a problem.
Okay, thank you.
More questions? With that, I guess we're done with this subject. Oh, any questions from the audience? Excuse me. And that ends community development.
I'll call to order. the
Land
land
use
use
first.
committee. We've got the lease renewal for the Haymakers Farmers Market. Turn, Bridget.
Yes, thank you. So this is the annual renewal of the Haymaker Farmers Market lease. For, as most of you are aware, they utilize the parking lot area that the city has a lease, a long-term lease in place with the railroad. This year's request is a little earlier. Typically, we run May to October, but we are running April to basically through November to allow greater time outside because of COVID. And in addition, with this annual renewal of the lease, we are including that area on Franklin Avenue because we anticipate, at least for the beginning part of the season, that space will be needed to ensure social distancing for both patrons and vendors. I do see that Andrew joined the call. So if you have any questions specifically to the logistics, Andrew can answer them, or I can assist as well.
I have a question.
Garrett,
Oh,
you're
Garrett.
muted.
Go ahead, Heidi. Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. So I'm just kind of curious, how was it going to be set up again with like sort of a one-way system like we had, like you guys had in the previous last spring and summer and fall, where people would go one way and there'd be checkpoints to make sure people were wearing masks and all that kind of stuff? Is that kind of the same kind of thing that we need the space to be able to do?
Andrew, I'll let you answer. Go ahead.
You're on mute, Andrew.
We do not yet have a vendor map for this year, but what I expect we'll do is adjust our practices as the season goes on. So we'll start with a similar setup to what we had last year. But last year we didn't know what we were dealing with as much, and so we tried basically all the precautions we could think of with the guidance of the Kent Health Department. This year we're looking to be a little more targeted in what we do so that there's less of a burden on our vendors. We'd like to return to having music programming at the market, having community organizations and arts at the market. We're looking to adjust our setup to allow for those things. So when I talked to the health department earlier, Justin at the health department, to make the music program work, we're looking to designate an area separate from customers so that there is, whatever minimum distance between where customers are and where musicians are performing. So there's going to be some adjustments to our setup, but in order to accommodate all our vendors and have that increased space between them, we do want to set up on the street again this year.
Very good.
Further questions from Council Roger?
Yeah, Andrew, I'm kind of curious. Have you lost any vendors, or are you anticipating having more vendors this year?
We absolutely did lose some vendors last year, and there was a few different reasons for that. For some of them, it was a safety concern, and for some of them, there's some natural attrition each year that happens, and there was more of that last year than normal years. I think people chose to retire.
Yeah.
So this year we have a great crop of new vendor applicants, and so that means we can be really selective about what the best mix of vendors for our community will be. So our farmers market board will be meeting on Monday to work out our vendor list. I'm pretty excited.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions from council? Anyone from the audience? Back to council. We need a motion.
Authorized.
With an emergency?
Please.
See, Heidi?
Yeah, with the
Okay,
emergency.
all right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, Health and Public Safety, Mr. Amrine.
Yeah, there's one item, a proposed amendment to the city's tobacco 21 ordinance. That's Hope, Joan, and Mike. So, I don't know who's taking it, but.
Well, I can start out and introduce Mike. Probably many of you remember Mike Angulano from the Health Department. He is our accreditation specialist. He also produces much of our health education material. He is also the department PIO during pandemic. Along with that, he's maintaining a straight A average as he works through his master's program for the School of Public Health. So you may recall that he came as a part of the group of the Penn State Health Department back in 2018 for the 21 ordinance which was passed, and that had a goal to reduce smoking and e-cigarette use over a 10-year period. He continues to work single-handedly for the most part on this grant, and tonight he has an update and an important P21 proposal request for you. So I'll turn it over to Mike.
You're muted, Mike. There,
How about now?
you're okay. Good.
That's better? Okay. Thank you very much, Joan. And yes, back in 2018, I can't believe it was already that long. We went through the process to pass Tobacco 21. I believe I provided an update on that policy after the first year of compliance checks. We did have 74% compliance that first year, which rose to 87% compliance the second year. So I would say that the policy is effective. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has thrown a wrench into another very important tobacco characteristic, and that's quitting smoking. Right now, with stress levels running high, with a lot of people enduring financial distress, worrying about getting sick, lost loved ones, there has been an uptick once again in traditional cigarette use. And that's been shown through many different reports from the Truth Initiative and from the CDC. So the proposed amendment to this policy would be to require the tobacco quit line, the Ohio quit line, to be posted at every point of sale, for every tobacco vendor in the city. It would be signage that would be created by the health department and by the Ohio Department of Health through this grant. As you know, with T21, establishments already have to have signage posted at the point of sale regarding the improper sale and the potential penalties that go with the selling to those under 21. So this would be simply in addition to that signage that we already made. There would be no fine associated with this policy. This is just a do-good sort of ordeal for these businesses, many of which, like the vape shops, want to help people quit. So it would come out of the grants funds to pay for me to make the signage, to reprint it, to send it out, and things like that. And I wanted to just bring up a quick stat regarding the quit line usage. The Ohio Department of Health did run numbers there. We had 27 calls to the Ohio quit line in the first quarter of the grant, which would be July, August, and September. We had 3 calls to the quit line in October, November, December. Typically a very stressful time of year with the holidays, with the changing of the weather. It's when our cases were really running high. It's when things started to close back up again. So it is a little bit concerning to me that only 3 people in the entire county called the Ohio quit line, perhaps during the 3 most stressful months of this pandemic. So this policy would allow us to get the word out. We have backing from the Prevention Coalition for Portage County. We have backing from the Vaping Task Force Committee that the Health Department also runs. So this is a policy that is of no cost, really, aside from just me printing out some things and adding some additional language to signage that is already required via Tobacco 21. Thank you.
Questions, Heidi?
Did you call me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, who operates the quit line? Is this a national, state, or more county-based? I've never heard of it.
So the Ohio quit line is run through the Ohio Department of Health. if somebody calls the quit line, they would be given an individual at ODH to work with. It's almost like a counseling session. They can get nicotine replacement therapy if they qualify. They can get it up to a certain amount of time. So this is simply not just somebody saying, hey, please quit smoking and then emailing you some resources. This is somebody that talks to you consistently, make sure that you're doing okay, checks up on you. And then if you qualify and want it, you can get nicotine replacement therapy, which is sort of the ultimate quick intervention to quit smoking.
Right, I've written grants for tobacco cessation for behavioral health, and I hadn't heard of this. So this is a good resource to know about. And yeah, it sounds like more people need to know about it.
Further questions? John?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused because to me, an ordinance means you have to do this. But I'm wondering, is there a need for an ordinance if we say you have to do this, but nothing happens if you don't do this? Would that be more of a PR thing would work the same way, you know?
Well, the thought behind that is that because we're attaching it to the tobacco 21 signage, which is required and is fined if you don't have that up at the point of sale, that essentially you would have to have it up anyway. Do you see what I mean? It's on the same signage. If an establishment doesn't have that signage up and they don't have it after the first warning, then it would be a $500 fine. So there is a fine behind the T21 signage itself, but there isn't a fine necessarily exactly to have the number posted, but they would have it posted because I'm giving them the signage to post. And that's the sign that they have to have visible at all times at their point of sale.
Well, if they had the tobacco 21 sign posted without this, they've still met the requirements, haven't they?
They would, yes, but the ordinance would have to have our sign posted, and our sign moving forward would have the quit line visible to everybody. And there are other T21 signs that you can have up. The state has one that some people post. Sometimes they make their own. A lot of people will post a ton of little sticky notes all over their establishment, showing that you can't buy if you're under the age of 21. But it didn't make sense to put a fine up against this because it's just not strong enough of a policy to fine somebody for not having a quit line. This is language that I would put onto the T21 ordinance. Onto the T21 signage as part of that ordinance and sort of tacking it on.
So your previous ordinance would say that they are required to have the 221 sign as provided by the health department and really doesn't have anything to do with the ordinance for the quit line. It just happens to be there.
Right. This would be an amendment, I believe, to that original ordinance.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
No, but yes. No, I mean, yes, but no.
Gwen?
Yeah, I had a quick question. So on my businesses and other businesses downtown, we're required to have like a no smoking sign with a phone number on it. And that phone number, is that to report like a complaint of somebody smoking in or around downtown businesses? Is that something different, right?
That would be something different, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So if I don't have that sign up, though, it's a health code violation. Would not having this sign with the quit line, would that be a health code violation to them? So maybe not a fine,
no.
but it would be. No?
It would. This policy would be for all of the licensed tobacco vendors that I currently have in my database, which is 22 or 21 right now. So it would only apply to these places because these are where smokers, are going to go at some point to purchase something, whether it's a vape, whether it's chew, whether it's traditional cigarettes. So this would only apply to the vendors that I have on my list that is essentially the same list that the state has on file.
Yeah, but they have it.
So this would not be all businesses.
Yeah, not all businesses, but would it be a health code violation if the businesses selling tobacco didn't have the sign? Kind of speaking to John's point that he was saying that this didn't seem like it had like a punishment associated. Would they get a health code violation? Would that be a punishment that potentially could exist if they didn't have that sign, your new signage up?
That would be correct because that would be a violation of the T21 ordinance.
Okay, so it would be like a health code violation that would show up on their inspection. It would show up on the health department website.
Yes, it would. It would.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Further questions? Anyone from the audience? Back to council.
Moved to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We have one opposing.
No. I was late to that. I was in favor.
Okay, so unanimous. Okay. Okay,
Jack, streets and sidewalks and utilities, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes, the first thing on our agenda is an extension of staff authorization for the use of city right-of-way. I think Mr. Bowling is going to speak to that.
Sure. If you remember last year during COVID, you guys, council granted us the authority to allow temporary license agreements to last through December 31st of 2020 so that we could be flexible to allow businesses to function safer with more capacity during COVID. We're just asking you give us that authority again this year since the pandemic is lasting longer than we expected. We do have 2 businesses downtown that are looking into this consideration, so it would be helpful if that would be able to be extended again this year through December 31st of 2021.
Okay. Any questions from council?
What were the 2 businesses?
Ray's Place and Barfly.
Other questions from council? I don't think we have anyone signed in, so I don't believe there's anyone in the audience for questions. Is there anyone who want to make a motion to this proposal?
Authorize with the emergency.
Second.
Second.
Okay, a motion and second. All those in favor of extending the use of right-of-way to of the administration authorization signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I think you're up. Are you up again on the water line?
Yeah. Mhm.
The second item is a consideration of a request for a new water line tie-in.
Sure. If you remember last month, we had a car wash that requested a tie-in to the township. We have a second request for a car wash to tie in the township across the street from the first one. So as with the last one, this one is not in the JED and does not want to be in the JED. So there'll be a 50% surcharge on their water rates. On a side note, the first car wash has been put on hold since they're actually behind this one and there's no desire to have 2 car washes across the street from each other. So we just heard that last week. So we're seeking your approval to allow Mod Car Wash to tie into the water.
Well, that's an interesting change. Any questions from council? Seeing no questions from council and knowing we don't have anyone in the audience, is there anyone who'd like to make a motion?
I have a question before we go.
Oh, okay, Heidi.
So, yeah, so I noticed that the water line is actually on the north side of the street. So they would have to, on their own dollar, go tunnel under the street to connect to the water line. Yeah, so there,
Yes.
so that's in Franklin Township. So would you be supervising that, Jim, or is that a Franklin Township?
Just a tap.
So this one's a little bit different. The main water line is across the street. However, there's an 8-inch line that crosses just to the west that they could potentially tie into that one instead. So, but that will be up to them and they will be charged, they will have to pay for everything. We will oversee the construction of the water line since it's connecting to our infrastructure. However, ODOT also requires to give a permit since they maintain the state route and it's in the right of way of the state route. So they get double supervision over what work they're going to be doing. So.
Yes, John.
Jim, two questions. What size water line and would they use a whole hog to get it in?
We haven't seen plans yet as far as what size their service would be because they're just providing service to their business. And since we haven't seen plans, I couldn't tell you their means and method as far as how they plan on getting connected. But once they get the approval here, they submit plans and staff review those in our office. And at that point, I could tell you what it would be, but I don't have that information yet.
Anyone else on council? Seeing no one, does anyone want to make a motion to this issue?
Move to approve emergency.
John moved, and I think Jack was second.
I think that was Robin.
Oh, is that Robin? I'm sorry, Robin. Okay, Robin was second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we're done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sidoti. Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon.
Okay, Jim's up again, huh? You're busy
Uh-oh.
tonight.
Getting
I was
overtime.
going to try to make it quick.
Okay, Ohio EPA loan agreement, right?
Sure. Thank you. So if you remember, back in 2018, we came to council for approval of a loan agreement with the EPA to construct the Southwest pump stations. Due to acquiring right-of-way issues and due to COVID, and we were a little early coming into to council with that, we need to come back and modify the requested amount. Before we were coming in asking for $2 million, even though the project was 2.2 million. But with the rates that we're able to get, we're requesting up to 2.5 million in the loan so that we can cover all our costs with the loan this time around. The project goes out to bid if you approve this starting next week. And so at that point in time, we need to have this approval so that we can submit to the EPA the loan agreement that has been signed by the city.
Questions? Seeing none. Anybody in the audience? No. Back to council.
Move to authorize with the emergency clause.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
you.
Parks and Recreation, you're still up, huh, Jim?
Yes. Mhm. Though I may have some people joining me and helping me on this one. So, so due to the fact that Parks and Recreation had a shortfall because they didn't get a grant they were planning on for the construction of the bike trail, we put together a memorandum of understanding sort of detailing how that loan would get paid back from Parks and Recs. So just asking your approval for that memorandum. The basic terms of the agreement are the money lent would be returned over 5 years. The capital fund would contribute some portion of that funding due to the fact that our inspection staff became unavailable due to changes in schedules and retirements, frankly. And also, if there's a residential park fee due by the city, instead of the city paying the parks for that fee, it would go to paying back the debt to the capital fund. So we're seeking your approval to sign that memorandum of understanding so that the terms are set to pay back the debt.
Melanie, do you have something?
As the interim Parks and Director. We did take this to the park board in February, on February 18th, and they did go ahead and approve the memorandum of understanding. They are okay with the parameters that are set forth in that. We are also going to look at any park and lieu fees that they receive from now until the end of this loan being automatically applied to the pay down on that as well. And we've been taking a look at their overall capital plan. I've been looking at that and their operations to see if there's any other ways that we can maybe establish a greater pay down when the project is complete so that we can lower what that annual payment is back. And just for clarification as well, we'll also be readjusting the memorandum of understanding at the completion of the project, because we'll only give them a loan for what's actually needed at the completion of the project. So if they don't need the full amount, we'll only loan them exactly what they need, but they are in agreement to pay it back. Thank you.
Questions? Roger.
Yeah, I'm curious, Jim or Melanie, is this the piece that's going to include the stairway down from our bridge with the lighting and all those things that were proposed earlier?
Yes,
So this is the piece. And what's the timeline? When do they think this is going to be completed?
the contractor starts construction April 1st. And it's expected to be completed by October.
Okay, so by the fall of this year, this calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none. Anybody in the audience? Back to council.
Move to approve with emergency.
Second.
Who's second? Second, Gwen. All right, all those in favor?
Do we have discussion
Well,
or?
let's get discussion, John.
Discussion, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to support this, but, I'm thinking over the 10 or 12 or whatever years I've been on council, and it seems like Parks and Rec is always having a shortfall financially, whether they're renting a house or they're buying property on something they think that's going to go through, or they're anticipating money that they're getting, and maybe they need better eyes or something. Just can't, because, it's not our money and it's not their money. It's the money that belongs to the city of Kent. I mean, this is a good project, but, why are they always on the short end of it? That's all I've got to say on that.
Heidi?
Yeah, I want to say that, it is disappointing that we didn't receive a grant. That seems like we were getting used to receiving grants, for these projects because they were so innovative, and I believe it still is, but we're now finding ourselves maybe in competition with a lot more cities that have thought, oh, wow, this is a great idea to improve our trails too. I want to support this because it's important this project go forward. This has been a long time in the making. People are really eager to see it happen. I think it is an economic development tool for bicyclists to get in, get on the trail, get off the trail, go downtown. It's all that we've been talking about. We've connected the communities. Now we really need to work on the within the city part. And so I'm all in favor of going forward with this, and I think it's a decent plan. Hopefully that we'll continue to see park fees, and this will get paid off in a relatively short amount of time.
Further, Roger?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the project. I hear what John is saying, and I think that there's a bigger conversation in terms of council's role in Parks and Rec, and I realize that the charter drives all that, but I think that at some point in time down the line, maybe a bigger conversation has to be had about the role the city should be playing in terms of the support or the lack thereof of the Parks and Recreation Board, or maybe the city should be, in essence, having more of a little bit of an oversight on those things, as John is suggesting. But I think that's a larger conversation. I think it's a great project. I think it's a long time coming. I think it's a dangerous situation right now at the end of that bridge, and I think that having this project completed does in fact signify a commitment to a city that is committed to walkability, the whole that whole river edge that we have, the whole river edge park. So I'm going to support it, but I hear what John has to say, and I have some of those concerns also.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sanitary pump station. Oh, Jim.
I promise this is it. In two ways. It's the last agenda item for me tonight, and it's also the last easement that we need for the pump station. We came to you back in, I think it was December, requesting the authority for eminent domain. I'm happy to say it wasn't needed. This is the last easement that's being that was signed. So we're just seeking your approval to execute this easement agreement for the permanent and temporary easement for this property.
Questions? Seeing none, audience, back to council, whatever.
Move.
To authorize with emergency.
Okay, that's Garrett.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Jim.
Thank you all.
Okay, amendments to the health department lease agreement. Who's gonna do this?
Well, I'll start since I want to make sure Jim doesn't try to jump in and do this one too. So this is an item that we've been working on for a little while. Certainly got, what's the word I want to use? Amplified as COVID continued to be among us. Joan is nothing if not a hardworking visionary leader. And one of her visions is really to kind of have a clinic on that ground floor. She's happy on her second floor for the administrative offices. This is over at the PARTA building. So that's worked out well. She loves being on the bus route. Claudia is happy to have her in the building as a paying tenant. So 2 thumbs up for that. And with Cutler leaving the ground floor space, Joan saw her opportunity there to at least have the discussion, open the discussion about, in the immediate term, I could very much see us, meaning her staff, being a vaccination point for COVID. And this seemed like a really nice location to do that on the ground floor. Not that they couldn't do it upstairs, but just this really seemed to lend itself very well to sort of that walk-in, park at the deck, ride the bus, get your shot, everyone goes home happy. So that's kind of the initial thrust of this. And we basically took the terms of the existing lease that she has for the second floor. We worked with Joan. Melanie helped out as the facilities manager, and Hope kind of put the thoughts down in paper in terms of the language and the text. And Claudia has agreed to it. Her staff, her legal team have reviewed it too. So the good news is I think we've got a document here in front of you that creates an opportunity as she closes in, and she could give you an update. I'm sure you're curious. Everybody wants to know when is she going to start giving shots here in the city of Kent? Obviously, she's working extremely close with the county on this, and actually may give shots. The county may give her some of the vaccine to give out too. So don't think she's not. She is vaccinating, but she really wants to be her own vaccinator. So she's close to that. So all of this is good. This is good news. I think it's not, it's below market rate that we've been able to negotiate. We appreciate Claudia working with us on that. Keep in mind, this was the Cutler space. And if there's a complicating factor here, it's that Phoenix Properties has a master lease on everything on the ground floor. So technically, if they had somebody to go in there, they could pay somebody, or someone could start paying them to go in there. So Claudia is trying to work out the sequencing in a way that allow Joan's lease to be the lease that'll be fine with both Claudia and the master leaseholder of Phoenix. At this point, the Phoenix Properties is no longer, using the management team that they had before. They essentially have a lawyer that's I know the mayor's been pretty close contact with these folks, that basically is working for Mr. Burbick's heirs to figure out how to sell all the properties. So we're not getting any signs or signals that they're ready to put somebody in there or even marketing that space, but we still have to work through that sort of legal situation. That's the only complicating factor. So what we're asking for you tonight is to approve this document, this MOU, or this amendment to the original lease agreement, and then let us keep working through the details to make sure we actually can get her in there. But she's going to go low profile. It's a reasonably short term for now. We hope it will be longer term, but we're only looking to do it through the end of 2021. So that's kind of a limited time frame, limited financial exposure. It meets what we think will be the immediate needs. And then I'm sure Joan will be right back with another list of secondary needs that could be served in there. So I've talked for that I should have, but I want to make sure to clarify. It's a little confusing on that point. We're looking for your blessing. Claudia is going to take it to her board very soon. And then we just got to make sure that the Phoenix property legal situation can be worked around. So Joan, did you want to?
I think you covered it really well. I would just mention that we've been at the Central Gateway for just a little over 6 months. And as you said, it's working out really nicely. Even before we moved over, I know we were kind of had our eyes on, well, wouldn't it have been nice to have a street level spot? And when that Cutler space opened up, we really started thinking maybe that could be something that could work out to help us expand, since the contact tracers are taking up the space of a would-be clinic on the second floor currently. We've kind of maximized all the space that we have available to us. So it would be great to have a little bit more room, to have some more options, and to have some flexibility in what we could offer our community.
Are there questions about the amendment for the lease agreement? Heidi?
Are you going to put some additional signage up indicating that what that will be if you end up using it as a vaccination clinic?
I think that it would have to be designated so that people could find it. I think that we would have to have some additional signage there for wayfinding, and so that people would know if I'm coming to the health department, where do I go for what services?
Yeah, I'm wondering also if there might be a need for special parking for that, versus open parking, special park. Well, I guess, you could use the deck, but, for some people needing to kind of run in and back out.
There is street level parking there right outside the retail spaces, including handicap, and there's nice, cutouts on the sidewalk so that people can access pretty readily. So it's a pretty ideal location for.
Okay.
Further, Robin, I seen you light up. Do you have a question?
No.
Okay, I just seen you light up and I didn't know. Jack, did you have?
I did, Mike.
Oh, I'm looking at all over. Okay, Garrett.
Joan, what other type of treatments would you anticipate in a clinic?
Well, short term, immediately, I could do some COVID testing. I do have some COVID test kits from the state. So as long as people met the state criteria, I could do that, offer that as well. And then, down the road, I think options become even more wide and diverse.
Such as?
Well, that would be, anything from like blood pressure screenings, blood sugar screenings, health education programs. I've had some wild ideas about working with the chefs in downtown Kent to do healthy cooking type of demonstrations and eating. Maybe get Andrew in from the farmer's market with some produce, show people what you can make out of, things that are locally grown right here and available readily. Certainly, the WIC program could run out of there 1 day a week and would definitely take a burden off of people having to go into Ravenna for that program.
Yeah.
And then further down the line, you know, occupational health would be great in terms of providing basic vaccines for city employees, as well as if they have minor injuries, that kind of thing. Fit testing for employees that might need that. So there is some interest in the community for a local, like, you know, even for drug screenings for new hires. So most people have to go to Hudson or Stowe or Akron for that. So there's all kinds of possibilities that we could, you know, start to look into.
So just on that drug screening side, would that be a fee for service that would be a revenue source for the city then?
Correct. I think the occupational health side there would be more potential there for, you know, a bit of an income instead of just a break even, like say with a vaccine clinic.
So I guess phrasing it as a question, you know, there's certainly a stigma about bus stations and public entities and government entities and government clinics in those areas. And I think I hate to say it, but it's something that's not something we would want downtown Kent, or that I would foresee that we would want. And I think we have to make sure that we're going to define what it is that the clinic does and the type of clientele that we want down there with all the other businesses down there. So it's probably not politically correct to say that, but that's the fact of the matter, and I'll be the first to say it. So.
Further? Roger.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. I'm not sure who to ask this question of, but in terms of the number of dollars that we expended in renting the house off of Kent State University versus what we're doing now, what kind of pressure is that putting on our resources of the city to expand that?
So Roger, I'll start with that and give Rhonda a second to think about it too. But so Kent State, the lease agreement we had with them dated back to actually, they sort of based it on rates that began when Greg Floyd was still there. And we went into Schwartz Center. Remember, the health department had a brief tenure in the Schwartz Center. And those rates were really low. And that was very much a reflection of the partnership and where Kent State was in terms of their space needs at that time. Well, it started to get, since that time, it's been getting more, they needed more and more space, because they were actually looking at space off campus because they needed more on campus, but couldn't find it. So they were slowly raising our rates. I remember they initially doubled our rate, and I begged them not to do it, and it worked. I groveled hard enough, I guess, and they did raise the rates a couple dollars per square foot. But I guess my point is, it's been going up even when it was under Kent State's watch. It went up another $1 or $2 based on the move across the street per square foot. But it's still below kind of the going rate certainly below the going rate for office space in our downtown. So we're happy with that, but your point is well taken. And it's kind of what Garrett was getting at too. We're not insensitive to the costs of all this. What's worked best for us though right now, and I think through the rest of this year, is the COVID funding that's been made available. That has really helped some of these costs that Joan is incurring and allows us to bridge that gap. Can we bridge it forever? No, not off COVID money. The question becomes the priorities, right? And getting a feel for how much she can do out of there that is fee-based, and how does that leave the net? I don't have the answer for you. Trust me though, we did have that conversation long and hard. And honestly, we pushed on PARTA to keep their rate as low as possible. We looked at options like, well, if the city does the janitorial work in there, will we save money rather than the janitor that they use? And supplies like paper towels and things like that. So Melanie's been involved. Joan obviously has been very much involved. So all that's just to say, there's been a lot of attention paid to those issues. I can confidently tell you it's below market rate. We're still getting a good deal. And we can afford it, at least in the near term. I don't know, Rhonda, did you want to jump in on that?
No, you pretty much said everything. The actual cost itself, yes, it's increased from what we've been paying before. I mean, to answer the question, But like Dave said, we're trying to see what's gonna happen this year. How much can we afford with the using some of the COVID money, and where is it going from here?
Very good.
Okay.
One other question, if I could, Mike.
Okay.
Joan, we already have, when you look at downtown Kent, we already have Town Hall 2. Do you see you duplicating some of those services in the,
What is that?
you expand, if you expand?
Well, I don't really want to duplicate services, but I want to make sure that people have access to care, because when health care and preventative care increases, everybody does a little bit better. So I wouldn't look to necessarily try to attract clientele away from other established, sources, but I don't think that there would be a lot of overlap. No, to answer your question.
All right, thank you.
John, sorry,
Did you say me?
John.
Okay.
Okay.
Has anyone ever considered in the near future of the easily accessible, plenty of free on-premise parking, ready to be remodeled, Save-A-Lot location? That was.
So John, that was on the list way back when we were looking at alternative sites, both for City Hall and even the Health Department. I love your optimism in terms of maybe an inexpensive retro, but it's not. It's, keep in mind, it is, what's the word I want to use? It's owned by a real estate company out of Texas who has not been particularly community minded. And so our pitch and appeal to the local community kind of angle, and especially with Joan, I mean, we're talking saving lives with COVID vaccines potentially. And, I don't want to say that changed Claudia's mind or her rates, but I think it plays into the conversation. She understands that. It doesn't seem to work so well with out-of-state folks like that. So, I don't know, Joan, did you want to comment on the logistics about there?
I mean, certainly it targets an area of concern in terms of population that has a low socioeconomic status, which is concerning. But I think that that's also the beauty of the Kent Central Gateway where we are, is that because of the bus line, it can easily bring people right to our door at a very small fee. So, and being downtown is really helpful in terms of the other services that the Kent City Health Department offers. So we're not looking to become just solely a clinic. We're still going to have, the food service organization program, the tattoos and body arts, and the housing inspections. And that's the Kent Central Gateway is just a great location to operate out of for all of the programs that we choose to provide. So.
Further questions? Seeing none, I don't see any audience. So I'll come back to the council.
Move to authorize with the emergency clause.
Second.
Second. Discussion?
No, I think Joan has demonstrated just unbelievable thoughtfulness and due diligence during this crisis, and her leadership, I think, is deeply appreciated by the people that she serves, and I think that this is a good opportunity to expand services to our residents, and I'm in favor of it.
Heidi?
Yeah, I really applaud this effort to make our health department even more visible. I think it's a point of pride. It's something that we could all end up needing to use at some point. And I like the central location as well. I just think there's really no downside to it. It's a great idea.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? It passes. One abstention, Jack. Okay. Now we go to Melanie with her NOPEC community grant funds.
This is real easy. This is just our annual acceptance of the funds that they provide us annually. If you remember, this goes back 4 years now. At the conclusion of the first energy contract and them taking on NextEra, it was their commitment to provide us not only with good energy service, but also with a refund back to the communities as monies were earned. So this year we'll be accepting $49,978. I asked your approval to accept that grant and allow us to put it in escrow until we have a project that's worthy to meet their requirements and will help us out as well.
Questions? Seeing none, no audience, back to council.
Move to
So
approve
moved.
emergency.
Okay, who seconded?
I'll second it.
I think it
Okay.
would be.
Okay, okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, all those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now opposed. Okay, thank you, Melanie. I think that's the end of mine. You gonna adjourn, or do I adjourn it? Or-
Good, Mike. That's it for the finance. We only have one thing that isn't on the agenda. For you people that don't know it, our clerk turned, I won't say the age, but today is her birthday. So let's wish her happy
Aw.
birthday.
Happy
Am I allowed to say the age?
Birthday. Thank
Maybe
you.
tell us how old.
She's
I turned
28.
50 today.
All right.
29 at the most, I can tell you.
I thought she was 28.
Oh, 28. Okay, Mike.
I'm 60. I'm going to start saying I'm older than I am. I'm 60 years old.
Tom's birthday's today
Yeah.
too, isn't it?
Oh,
Who's?
Tom Wilkie.
Tom Wilkie,
Oh,
yeah.
is it Tom? Oh, my God.
That's right.
He's a wee bit older than you, Amy.
she's 29.
And he isn't here to defend himself, Bridget.
Exactly.
He's really old.
I
Happy
know
birthday.
nobody missed me, but I'm down in Florida and I've been sending warm air up your way. Not warm air,